Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Against the Sky Supreme based on novel. So let's start. Hearing this, Kuanping Jin Tong sent a voice transmission to Tan Yun. Brother, are you telling the truth? Then we will wait for a while. We can kill him after he is attacked. Tan Yun's voice transmission said, of course it's fake. He is a 5th class semi-sage. After the half-sacred soul is burned, his strength will be greatly reduced, but we are still not his opponents. I just scared him. Run for your life, then run away. When Tan Yun and Jin Tong Kuanping transmitted their voices, John Ji, who was chasing after him, was indeed a little worried. Tan Yun's words affected him. He couldn't help but back off. Leave the green hills so I won't be afraid of running out of firewood. I can't die. If I want to live, there will always be a chance to catch that kid again. That kid's voice and that look, I remember it. Yes, I can't die. I should return to the Supreme God King City and tell the Patriarch the news of the death of the eldest young master. With my uncle protecting me, I shouldn't be executed. When thinking of this, John Ji felt a dizziness in his mind, and realized that he had begun to suffer from backlash. He roared angrily, Kuanping, as well as you who killed the eldest young master and the second young master, sooner or later, I will catch you all. Facing the pale and powerless threat, Tan Yun smiled. At the same time, he was relieved. It seemed that this kid was bluffed. Tan Yun looked back, but seeing John Ji who was bleeding from the 7 orifices, he turned around and flew away. Ha 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 ha, it's finally raining and sunny. After Tan Yun laughed heartily, he sent a voice transmission to Jin Tong Kuanping. Xiaolu, just in case that kid is cheating, you still have to fly with all your strength. Also, you release your divine sense to lock him to see if he really leaves. The battle turns and the stars move, the next day, the hour. Jin Tong Kuanping sent a voice transmission to Tan Yun during the flight. Brother, he has left, and my consciousness can no longer cover him. Okay, great. Tan Yun said with a smile. This way we can go to Qingyang Shenhu with peace of mind. Time flies, 2 years later. Supreme God King City. A beam of light fell from the sky, flew outside the Zhanfu, and turned into Zhanji. With an ugly face, he ignored the guard who bowed to him, stepped into the mansion, and went straight to the palace of the chief steward. When he came to the main hall, he found that his uncle was not there. He stepped out of the hall and looked at the maid who passed by and said, "Where is my uncle?" The maid said respectfully, "The master just returned from the battlefield an hour ago. Now the master is in charge of the master." Hearing this, John Ji took a deep breath, and went straight to the main hall of the Patriarch. Just outside the hall, John Ji heard the conversation between John Peng, the head of the house, and John De, the uncle. John De. John Ji has been away for so many years. Why hasn't the killer of Zhu Qian been caught yet? Patriarch, don't worry, this old slave's nephew is serious in his work and extraordinary in ability, and he can definitely bring the murderer back. Well, I hope, if Zhanji can really catch the murderer, then the head of the family will find a position for him in the army and be loyal to Lord Lingxia Tianzuan. Listening to the conversation in the hall, Zhanji took a deep breath, knelt down suddenly outside the hall, and kowtowed. Patriarch, your subordinates are not doing well, and you and your uncle have been disappointed. Please punish. The two in the hall were stunned when they heard the words, followed the sound and looked at John Ji. Jia, what's going on? With your strength, you didn't find the murderer? John De asked. Alas. John Peng sighed, okay, get up, come in and talk. It's the head of the family. John Ji got up and walked into the hall. Tell me, why didn't the murderer catch him? John Peng's face was gloomy, thinking of his most beloved and dead second son. his heart was burning with anger. John G said truthfully, reporting to the patriarch, the murderer is a sixth-class god, but he somehow moved the golden-winged Kunpeng to help him escape from the fierce abyss of gods. The subordinates burned the half-sacred soul, but in the end they didn't catch up. Hearing this, John Peng's turbid eyes filled with cold light. The golden-winged Kunpeng dares to oppose the head of the family, it's really outrageous. At this time, John De said, Patriarch, do you think the murderer will follow the golden-winged Kunpeng to Kunpeng Tianhai? It's very possible. After John Peng said, he suddenly thought of something, looked at John Ji and asked, where's the eldest young master? Have you come back? Thump. John Ji suddenly knelt down and kowtowed, Patriarch, the eldest young master was killed by that kid. Without waiting for John Ji's words, John Peng's old body shook, his eyes widened, and he shouted, what did you say? Patriarch, this subordinate has already tried his best. John Ji kowtowed, it's the subordinate's incompetence, please punish the patriarch. Plop. John De immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed, Patriarch, it's the old slave who is not doing well, it's the fierce abyss that the old slave sent John Ji to. Please spare Ji's life and kill the old slave. John Peng looked at the two kneeling on the ground, turbid tears dripped down. After a long time, he let out a hysterical roar, Yuna, my child. Puff puff. John Peng's old body trembled violently, spurted 3 mouthfuls of blood, raised his head and screamed. His voice was mixed with endless sadness and anger. Thinking of the second son John Zutian and the eldest son John Zuyun, who died in the hands of one person one after another, he was so angry that his face turned purple and his facial features were distorted. Patriarch, you have to take care of your health. John De hurriedly stood up to help John Peng, it hurts your body so much. John Peng spit out another mouthful of blood, his eyes were red, my 3 sons, 2 have died, can I not be angry? After speaking, John Peng shouted at John Ji on the ground, useless trash. Tell me, what happened? With you here, how could my Yuna die? John Ji kept silent and told John Peng what happened. When John Peng heard, rewinding time, he suddenly thought of his former master, Hongmeng Supreme. Immediately, his face was pale, and he was in a cold sweat. Immediately, he shook his head and said, no, Lord Shuyuan Supreme has already deduced it, and after discovering that Hongmeng Supreme is eternal, he has already died. It must be the murderer who used a trick, or the murderer is the aptitude of the time attribute, which caused it to look like the time has gone backwards. Yes, it must be like this. Looking at John Peng, who was extremely frightened, John De agreed, Patriarch, you are right, Hongmeng Supreme has long since died. In the world, no one will use time backwards. After saying this, John De hurriedly transmitted a voice to John Ji, look, you scared the patriarch. The last thing the patriarch wants to hear is anything about Hongmeng Supreme, don't you apologize. When John Ji heard this, he kowtowed, Patriarch, perhaps his subordinates made a mistake at the time. I'm sorry, my subordinates failed to protect the eldest young master, and my subordinates deserve to die for their crimes. John Peng stretched out a finger and pointed at John Ji angrily, if it wasn't for your uncle's sake, the owner of the family would really want to kill you with one palm. You are a dignified 5th class and semisage, not only failed to stop a 6th class heavenly beast Kunpeng, but also let that evil beast take the murderer, kill Yuna and run away. Until now, the owner of this family doesn't even look like the murderer. I know, it really asterisk me off. At this time, John Ji bit the bullet and said, Patriarch, this subordinate has a plan, maybe we can catch the murderer. Speak. John Peng said solemnly. John Ji still knelt down, go to Kunpeng Tianhai, arrest all Kunpeng, and force Kunpeng who was with the murderer to show up, so that the murderer can be found. After hearing this, John Peng was furious, get out of here, I don't want to see you idiot now. Zhongji got up in a hurry, his legs went weak with fright, and left the hall. Patriarch, what Jia said makes sense. John De said cautiously. John Peng took a deep breath and said, this time, I followed the Supreme Divine King to go on an expedition, and encountered the siege of the 12-winged demon generals from outside the territory, and almost lost my life. The speed of the 12-winged demon king is really terrifying. In our universe, only the speed of the Kunpeng 6 clan can match it. So Lingxia Tianzuan wants to win over the 6 Kunpeng clans, devote allegiance to her, and deal with the 12-winged demon king outside the territory. But the Kunpeng 6 clans, since ancient times, have sworn allegiance to Hongmeng Supreme, and it is even more difficult to win over. If at this time, because of my son's reasons, go to the Kunpeng clan to start a teacher and ask for guilt, it will definitely affect the Lord Tianzuan to win over the 6 clans. Also, we can't go to Kunpeng Qianhai. Today's master of the Kunpeng 6 clans is so powerful that even Originator Supreme and Chaos Supreme must be in or of 3 points. We went. At that time, if we don't get it right, we anger the other party, and it's not impossible for the other party to destroy us. You must know that the Kunpeng 6 clans are not easy to mess with. Hearing this, John De nodded and said, so that's the case. But the Patriarch, since the Kunpeng 6 clan swears allegiance to the Supreme Lord Hongmeng, why didn't the 2 Supremes cut them down? John Peng sighed and said, you don't know that the blood of the 6 Kunpeng clans can open up the connection between the heart of origin, the heart of chaos, and the heart of Hongmeng. In this way, the hearts of the 3 major gods can release the vast power to prevent the cosmos from being destroyed. Therefore, this is the real reason why the 2 supreme beings, Lord Lingxia Tianzuan, ordered the killing of Kunpeng is strictly prohibited. Okay, this matter is too far away, let's not mention it. The most urgent task is to figure out how to find the murderer. At this time, John De seemed to have thought of something, and hurriedly said, Patriarch, this old slave called Jia. There are some things, please ask him to confirm. Later, John De called John Ji and asked, since the murderer is masked, do you remember his voice and eyes? Uncle, nephew remembered. Zhang Ji affirmed, as long as he meets him, just by his voice and eyes, nephew can judge that he is the murderer. Okay, very good. After Zhang De sneered, he bowed to Zhangping and said, Patriarch, Lingxia Tianzuan has an order, in the Hongmeng God realm, except for the King of Gods, the descendants of nobles and servants, anyone, after being promoted to the gods, all have to join the army, we can start from here. Yes, I'm so confused, how could I forget this? John Peng's eyes showed a hint of coldness, and he looked at John Ji and ordered, this Patriarch will go to Lord Lingxia Tianzuan, let Lingxia Lord Xia Tianzuan show the search warrant. When the search warrant is in hand, I will send a strong person to protect you, leave the family immediately, and on my behalf, go to the other nobles to check the personnel one by one. I have checked all the nobles and the palace of the gods. It is expected to take 100 years. Don't say 100 years, even if it takes 1,000 years. The murderer will not be able to advance from the 6th level human ****** to the 1st level god. After 100 years, if you don't find the murderer, then you will come back to retreat and practice. To be on the safe side, after 500 years, you will go to Hongmeng Divine City to investigate the people who went to join the army one by one. In this way, the murderer can definitely be found out, but it's just a matter of time. After a while, John Peng flew out of the Supreme Divine King City, and at the speed of his second-class Divine King, he arrived at Hongmeng Divine City after only half a year. After hearing about what happened to John Peng, Lingxia Tianzuan readily agreed and issued a search warrant. The reason why Lingxia Tianzuan agreed so readily is because it used to be the hiding place of Hongmeng Supreme provided by John Peng. After John Peng got the search warrant, it took another half a year to return to Jianfu, the city of the supreme god. Afterwards, John Peng transferred 2 9th-level great saints from the army to protect Zhongji and leave the supreme god king city, and began to prepare to search the Hongmeng god realm, all the palaces and nobles of the god king. At the same time, in Hongmeng god realm, in the southern mountain range, there is an ancient sacred mountain, Qingyang Sacred Mountain. In the mountain stream under the sacred mountain, where the lush greens are dripping and the divine essence lingers, there is a Baibo lake with a radius of 100,000 immortals, Qingyang Shenhu. This lake was unknown 30,000 years ago, but since someone accidentally discovered an ancient teleportation formation at the bottom of the lake at that time, until it was discovered that one end of the teleportation formation was a vast ancient ***** realm, Qingyang Shenhu became famous for the 3 major ***** realms. With the news of another cave in the Qingyang Shenhu spreading throughout the Hongmeng god realm, in the past 30,000 years, there has been an endless stream of people who have come to experience the treasure hunt. Therefore, in the mountains behind Qingyang Sacred Mountain, in the past 30,000 years, a square market has gradually formed, Qingyang Square City. The buildings in Qingyangfang are quite magnificent, with inns, restaurants, and shops selling goods everywhere. Those who go to the ancient gods to find treasures can go to the square market and sell them to shops at high prices, or they can trade on their own in exchange for what each other needs. Since Qingyangfang City is relatively close to Xuehu God King City, it is guarded by the Xuehu God Clan Army. The Snow Fox God King has an order, no matter who it is, after entering the market, no private fights are allowed, and those who violate the order will be killed without mercy. If you want to fight, you can leave Fang City and fight in the mountains. Night falls. Whizzing. At this time, 2 beams of white light and 1 gold beam pierced the sky and turned into a man and a woman at the top of Qingyang Divine Mountain. The young man in white robe is naturally Tan Yun. The girl in the golden skirt is Jing Lu. On the way here, Jing Lu told Tan Yun that the Xuehu Protoss army was stationed in Fangsha. Tan Yun stopped at the top of the peak, looked back and looked down at the Qingyangfang city, which was like a giant city between the mountains, and there was a strong hatred in the stars. Because the patriarch of the Snow Fox God clan, who is also the current Snow Fox God King, also betrayed Tan Yun in the past. And the God King Xuehu, after his death in the past, led the Xuehu God clan army to slaughter his subordinates with other rebels. Tan Yun retracted his gaze and looked at the night sky in the east, which was the direction of the Snow Fox God King city. Tan Yun's eyes were bloodthirsty, and he whispered to himself, God King Xuehu, wait for me, one day I will make your Xuehu God clan go extinct. Afterwards, Tan Yun breathed a deep sigh of relief and looked at Jing Lu sideways. Let's go to the ancient god realm. Well. Jing Lu nodded and said softly, brother, there will be many heavenly venerates inside. These heavenly venerates are all gods. If they don't go on expedition, they will go to the various gods to search for treasures. After entering, we try not to cause trouble, there are many strong people. Tan Yun said with a smile, I understand, if you can bear it, you can bear it. Jing Lu, let's go. Tan Yun smiled slightly. Yeah. Jing Lu smiled, and immediately, the two jumped down from the top of the peak, like 2 meteors, brought 2 water flowers, plunged into the Qingyang Shenhu Lake, and flew towards the bottom of the lake. Half an hour later, Tan Yun and the 2 reached the bottom of the lake. Jing Lu took Tan Yun and swam through a huge gap at the bottom of the lake, and finally came to a cave at the bottom of the lake. The entrance to the cave is tens of thousands of zhong huge, and the cave house is even bigger, which is 1,000,000 zhong huge. On the surface of the cave, there is a teleportation formation. It's just that this teleportation array is not paved with space-time blood crystals, but is composed of a strange-shaped text. Brother. Jing Lu's teeth turned softly, and a pleasant voice sounded. These words are said to be known only by the Supreme Chaos, not even by the Supreme Origin. Supreme Chaos 30,000 years ago, she saw that this was a teleportation formation, and she cracked it, and then transformed it on the basis of this formation, so that people only need to consume 100 pieces of top-quality divine jade. You can open the teleportation array. Well, I understand. Tan Yun replied, looking at the text on the teleportation array under his feet, and gradually frowned. Looking at Tan Yun, who was worried, Jing Lu said softly, "Brother, what's the matter with you?" Tan Yun said, "Xiao Lu, for some reason, I found that I knew these words, and I could also see the structure of the teleportation array." "What?" Jing Lu's beautiful eyes widened, and she said with an incredible voice transmission, "Brother, it is said that this teleportation array is a product of the last universe. How do you know it?" Tan Yun frowned, and said through voice transmission, "Not only do I know each other, but I read these words, and for some reason, my heart is a little sad and sad. I feel..." Tan Yun's soulless voice transmission said, "I feel inexplicably sad, as if these words are like flesh cut from my body, the same heartache. Why do I know these words, and why do I feel inexplicable sadness?" Just when Tan Yun was transmitting the sound, suddenly, a sneer came from outside the cave. "You too, how are you?" Tan Yun and Jing Lu suddenly looked back, but saw 8 giants as tall as 100 zhong and walked in. "Titan giant." Tan Yun froze in his heart, and said through a voice transmission, "Xiao Lu, I can't see the cultivation level of the 8 people. The 8 people are at least the 7th level gods. What realm are they?" Tan Yun knew that Jing Lu had golden eyes, and like Xianyuan Ru, she could see through anyone's cultivation. "Yeah," Jing Lu said in a voiceless voice. "The giant titan headed by him is a 2nd-class semi-holy. The remaining 7 people are all 9th-class gods. Brother, we are not their opponents." "Okay, I understand." After Tan Yun's voice transmission, he clasped his fists and bowed. "Respected senior titan, what are your orders?" The giant titan headed, arrogantly said, "Don't be nervous, I am not greedy for beauty, and I will not kill you. I'm just a little tight. I hand over all the divine jade on your body, and then your little lives will be saved. Otherwise, I don't mind moving my feet and crushing you." Hearing this, Tan Yun nodded and said, "Yes, yes, this junior will give you the divine jade." When Tan Yun was about to take out the divine jade in the fairy ring, the giant titan stretched out his right hand. "Give me the fairy ring, and I'll take it myself." Tan Yun frowned, then took off the immortal ring and handed it to the titan. The titan released his divine sense, and after entering the immortal ring, his huge eyes suddenly lit up. "Not bad boy. There are so many divine jades, and so many earth snakes." Saying that, all the earth snakes and divine jades in the giant titan's control fairy ring flew out and landed in his giant palm. "These earth god snakes are expensive. I will be able to sell a lot of god jade in Fang Market in the future, ha 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 ha." The giant titan said with a smile, "If I am not interested in other things, I will give them to you." Saying that, the giant titan waved his right hand and threw the immortal ring on the ground. Immediately, after walking past Tan Yun with 7 subordinates, he wanted to use 100 pieces of top-quality divine jade to open the teleportation formation. At this moment, Tan Yun's face was calm, but in fact, his heart was murderous. "Grass. You 8 wait for me. I will smash your corpses into 10,000 pieces sooner or later." After making up his mind, Tan Yun beckoned, and the immortal ring on the ground rose into the air and took it into his hand. After Tan Yun put on the immortal ring, he looked at the 8 titan giants with a stunned expression and said, "Senior, this junior cannot open the teleportation formation without the divine jade on his body. Can you bring the junior and enter the ancient ***** realm together?" The giant titan suddenly laughed, looked down at Tan Yun and sneered. A humble human race like you also want to ride in the teleportation formation with this vice-general. Get out of this, lieutenant. Hearing this, when Tan Yun was about to speak, a male voice sounded in his mind, dude, forget it, stop talking. These titan giants are ferocious in nature, they are just ****** robbers. If you say it again, you will be mercilessly killed by them. Also, the leader of the Titan, named Darbas, is the lieutenant in the Titan army. We can't afford to offend him. Hearing this, Tan Yun looked at Darbas and said respectfully, Junior will leave now. With that said, Tan Yun pulled Jinglu, turned and walked out of the cave. Mother, it's almost the same. Darbas scolded his subordinates, inspired the teleportation formation, and left the cave. At this moment, outside the cave, Tan Yun saw a simple and honest 6th-class celestial youth looking at him. Tan Yun clasped his fist and said, Jing Yun, thank you Shungtai for reminding me. The young man cupped his hands and said, you don't have to be polite, it's just a matter of raising your hands. You don't have the divine jade. I have it, you just follow me into the ancient ***** realm. Thank you so much. Tan Yun said with a smile, brother, are you also a ***** army? Yeah. The young man said, my dear Bo Shu, my commander is the famous God King Bo Cheng. God King Bai Cheng. Tan Yun was confused. He remembered that there was only one God King named Bai, and that was Bai Zhongyong, who betrayed him in the past. Tan Yun said quietly, Brother Bai, I just ascended to the God realm not long ago, and I don't know much about the Hongmeng God realm. I heard before that there is not only one ***** king named Bai Zhongyong. Hearing the 3 words, Bai Zhongyong, Bai Shu's eyes flashed with a touch of unnoticeable sadness, and he said, his old man died in the extraterritorial universe a long time ago. The current king Bai Cheng is the grandson of his old man. Hearing this, Tan Yun sneered in his heart, you deserve to die. Okay, no more to say, brother Jing, let me take you in. At this moment, Bo Shu smiled. Okay, thank you very much. I will definitely repay the kindness of helping out today. Tan Yun said with a fist. Bo Shu waved his hand, you don't have to worry about it. Then, when Bo Shu's divine ring flickered, 100 pieces of top-quality divine jade flew out, and shot steadily into the teleportation array's eyes. As the 100 pieces of top-quality divine jade were embedded in the formation eye, the space in the huge cave trembled frequently. The next moment, Tan Yun and the 3 disappeared out of thin air. Immediately, the scene in front of Tan Yun's eyes changed, and he found himself standing on the grass. Looking out, there is a lake in front of the grass, and on the opposite side of the lake is a city. Just the city gate. It is as high as 1,000,000 zhong. Tan Yun looked at the city gate, a little absent-minded. For some reason, the faint sadness filled his heart again. He looked at the meadows with blooming flowers all around, the lakeside under the blue sky, and the ancient giant city on the other side of the lake. A familiar feeling struck him. Looking at the grass and trees in his field of vision, he became more and more familiar, as if he had been here before. But Tan Yun is very clear that he has never been in the future. Brother Jing, it's time for me to go, we will have a date later. Bo Shu clasped his fists and said, I hope you can find the treasures of heaven and earth. And here is 100 pieces of top-quality divine jade, you take it, you need it when you leave. Tan Yun clasped his fists and said, thank you, Brother Bo, the divine jade will be returned in the future. Afterwards, Bo Shu smiled, and after leaving 100 pieces of top-quality divine jade for Tan Yun, it turned into a beam of light, and shot into the city gate. Husband, what's wrong with you? At this moment, Shen Subing's worried voice sounded in Tan Yun's mind. Although Shunsubing was in the Lingxiao pagoda in Tan Yun's ears, she, the girls and the beasts were able to peep outside. Naturally, I can see the unconcealed sadness in Tan Yun's eyes. Tan Yun sent a voice transmission to Shunsubing. Subing, I don't know why, when I see this place, I feel inexplicably sad. I seem to know that every grass and tree here knows everything in the ancient city. Tan Yun looked at a line of strange handwriting on the city gate, and said, "This city is called the City of Immortal Ancient Gods." Immortal Ancient God. Shunsubing said, "Husband, I've never heard of it." At this moment, Subing was sinking in the tower, as if thinking of something, and said through a voice transmission, "Husband, I remember you said that you have seen it in the classics. With the two great destructions of the universe, among the billions of races, there are 4 major races, has the possibility of a cosmic cataclysm without dying. You said at the time that the first type was the undead giants. The second is Yingying's celestial clan. The third type is your disciples' 7 veins ancient Protoss. There is the last one. Because of the broken classics, you can't know the 4th race. Could it be that this last one is the immortal ancient god race? Also, why does Sun Xuanqi, the supreme eldest of chaos, recognize the handwriting of the immortal ancient Protoss, just like you? Speaking of which, Shunsubing came out of thin air in front of Tan Yun. Her eyes widened and she stared at Tan Yun. Husband, Zhuanyuanru's father, in the past, he deduced to you that when you said that you were the supreme being, wasn't it the first life? Then you feel so familiar here, and here are the relics left over from the last cosmos catastrophe. Could it be? Could it be that your true identity is the immortal ancient god? Tan Yun frowned. There is a possibility. Let's go first and see if we can evoke my memory. As for why Chaos Supreme knows the handwriting of the immortal ancient Protoss, one day, I will ask her personally. After saying this, Tan Yun hugged Shunsubing gently, and said affectionately and worriedly, "You are too beautiful. It is not safe outside. You should enter the Lingxiao pagoda first." Well. Shunsubing nodded, looked at Jinglu, and urged, "Protect your brother." "Don't worry, sister-in-law, I will." Jinglu smiled. Afterwards, Shunsubing turned into a beam of light, and disappeared into the Lingxiao pagoda in Tan Yun's ears. Tan Yun looked at the ancient city of immortality, took a deep breath, and thought to himself, "If I am really a member of the immortal ancient gods, then wouldn't I be the same clan as the soul-devouring abyss of the 9 heavens immortal realm, the giant woman in the giant coffin?" Confused, Tan Yun and Jinglu took off and flew towards the city gate while asking, "Jinglu, are you familiar with this immortal ancient city?" "Well, I've been here a few times, and I probably know the structure," Jinglu responded. Tan Yun said, "If I'm not wrong, the ancient city of immortality is quite vast, reaching 9 trillion billion cents. In the ancient city of immortal gods, a quarter is a mountain range, and a quarter is an immortal forest. A quarter are lakes and streams, and the remaining quarter are buildings, right?" Jinglu looked at Tan Yun in disbelief and nodded frequently, "Brother, you are right." Tan Yun said again, "In the center of the ancient city of immortality, there is a mansion called the Immortal Gods Mansion, right? This mansion occupies an area of hundreds of millions of immortals, and it is magnificent and simple, right?" Jinglu's head twitched like a chicken pecking at rice. "Brother, there is indeed a mansion in the center of the ancient city of immortality, covering an area of 130 million cents. The houses in the mansion are the smallest. It is as high as 30,000 zhong, and it seems that the people of the immortal ancient god race are quite huge. As for this mansion, whether it is the immortal god's mansion, I don't know, because no one knows the handwriting on the mansion. Oh, by the way, brother, there is an ancient temple in this mansion, and there is a ban. Even the 2 supreme beings did not break the ban at that time." Hearing this, Tan Yun said, let's go to the ancient temple you mentioned first." In the next 6 months, Tan Yun and Jing Lu flew all the way to the mansion in the center of the city in the ancient city of immortality. Due to the huge city, Tan Yun did not meet anyone else on the way. When flying towards the mansion, Tan Yun looked at the buildings that were dozens of meters high and hundreds of thousands of meters high, and he vaguely thought of something, but he just couldn't remember it. Night falls. Tan Yun and Jing Lu arrived in front of a magnificent mansion in the center of the city. Tan Yun looked up at the 4 peculiar characters on the gate of the mansion, his pupils shrank, and he found 4 traces. Go in. After Tan Yun left a sentence, he stepped into the giant gate of the mansion step by step. What caught his eye was the overgrown mansion compound. Brother, I'll take you to the ancient temple with restrictions. After Jing Lu said, he took Tan Yun and shuttled through the magnificent, but desolate mansion at the moment. Tan Yun followed Jing Lu and flew over the pavilions and suddenly said, "Little Lu, wait." When Jing Lu heard the words, she suddenly looked back and found that Tan Yun was suspended in the sky in front of a monument that was as high as 1,000,000 zhong. Standing in a small lake, the monument is nothing special except that it is as tall as a mountain. Brother, what's wrong? Jing Lu asked. Tan Yun said through a voice transmission, this monument seems to be called the Zhenfu God Stele. After speaking, Tan Yun flew over the lake and suspended in front of the God Stele. This video will end here.